On today's episode, we'll talk about the documentary industrial complex, the importance of listening, Ozark, Boston Strangler, and of course, the benefit of working for an art house football coach. Just a little bit of business before we start. There may be a curse word here or there in this episode, so please listen responsibly. As always, our website, theop.io, is up and chock full of tips, tricks, and gooey operator goodness. Make sure to check out the breakdown where the best operators in the biz explain shots they have done, the musings where we discuss everything from quick tips to larger concepts of storytelling, the blocking, the answers, the images, and so much more. If you're enjoying this podcast, please follow us, write a review, share us with your parents, and talk us up around the water cooler with your friends. So grab a beverage, sit back, and enjoy the op. Thanks for listening.
Lock it up, nice and quiet, and let's roll.
Rolling. Victor 30 Echo, take 2.
Camera, D-Mark.
And camera set. And action.
Hello and welcome back to the Op Podcast, the podcast where we talk about operating and the art of visual storytelling. I'm Dave Comides, your host, and coming to you over the internet today to someone in New York, of all places. I don't know why I said of all places, because there are a lot of people in New York. A very good friend and an amazing camera operator and director and cinematographer and also just human being, Ari Issler. Ari and I have actually been fortunate enough to work a couple times together, but some of his credits, not all by any means, Black Rabbit, Boston Strangler, which we are absolutely going to talk about because not enough people have seen this amazing movie. Ozark, where we worked together because he actually brought me into that. The Outsider, Happy-ish, which was the show that also nobody saw, but that was sort of a lot of fun a while back. There's a movie called Verite, which is just coming out, I think, in a couple of weeks that he was on. And he directed a movie called 1155, which was one of those movies where he said, hey, I directed this movie, you should watch it. And you sort of watch it hoping it's not terrible so you can say something. And it was actually really good. So that was kind of cool. And I'll actually find out where it's streaming because I don't know. And before I go on, I should mention that in the past, he has done a breakdown of a oneer, like a really different kind of oneer that he did on The Outsider, and then that led into a separate discussion of just oneers and what makes them that we had. Both are available on the podcast, and I'll link to them on the webpage. But there you go. Without further ado, Mr. Ari Issler, thanks for being here, man.
Thanks, Dave. Happy to join you, as always.
You're excited, I can tell.
Let's talk film. This is me excited. Now I'm smiling and everything.
This actually is Ari excited.
Yeah, this is about as excited as I get. No, thanks for having me.
Well, I've been trying forever, and you're never available because you're always working on something. It's which is good, but that's the way it goes, right?
I'm mostly chauffeuring my 9-year-old and taking care of the dog that they made us get this year. But
dude, tell me your story. How'd you get to where you are? And
I went to film school for a couple of years at NYU. Start of my biggest secret, and no one ever wants to talk about on set. I went to community college and I went to film school. I'd always had a background in photography, so I guess I wasn't scared of the camera, in sophomore film class. So, was interested in that and, fell into shooting student films and camera assisting and working as an electric and all that, for free or close to in my early 20s. And I just didn't really have the resources to make my own thing at the time. So it was a great way to learn. I learned so much, mostly not actually at school. Anyways, I loved camera assisting, had a brief love affair with camera assisting. And I was going to, I graduated right before 9/11 and was going to take my life savings and join the union. And then there was no work after 9/11. Production was already, really, there was so much production in Canada already around that time. And then, clearly, New York, just after these tragic, it was certainly not the biggest tragedy of 9/11 would be my camera assisting career. But I didn't take the only money I had in the world to join the union. And I was working, as like $100 a day focus puller on Super 16 shorts and, things like that. Forever I get seconding on little commercials that we're still shooting, whatever it was. And I met someone. I was pulling focus on a student film that I like, for like $100 a day, like, something that maybe at the time I always tell people like, you're not, it's just like take whatever's in front of you. You never know who you're going to meet. It's the great thing about sort of independent, filmmaking and even union filmmaking. It's just like everyone has a side project, has a hustle. There's so many people that are so supportive. Having been someone who's directed feature films now and produced, feature films, like that community is so far reaching that people that really want to help others succeed. So anyways, I digress a little bit. I met a director. I was a camera assistant. I met a director. We ended up making a documentary together. He hired me to shoot a documentary for what happened. What ended up being like 4 years. Shot Super 16 mostly. It was called the Hip Hop Project. It went to, went to festivals around the world. Went to Tribeca. Was in theaters briefly, but more than I also then lost every camera assistant client I could possibly, I hope to have. So at the same time, I kind of fell into what a young Bradford Young called the documentary industrial complex.
Oh, wow.
It was like everyone was making a documentary. Everyone had a 5D, was following someone down the street. So, but that, the success of this doc kind of led to opportunities in stylized live music and music video, and eventually documentary style commercials. So it's going to be becoming a really long answer. But basically, I spent almost the next 10 years shooting all those things, whether it's, concerts, Bonnaroo, Beyonce, like whether it's music video, whether it was, Delta Airlines, commercial that's supposed to look like a documentary. So it's great. I mean, I traveled the world. I learned a lot. I could dork out forever about all the things you learn about lighting and composition when you have no resources. You have to take every lamp in the hotel room and put a pillowcase in front of it for a soft light, or you have to just find the backlight, or you figure out how to use the macro ring on the ENG to pull focus to the drummer's hand that's a foot in front of you. And everyone's like, how do you do that?
But don't you feel that where you're at in your career right now, that those things are like an invaluable
absolutely,
toolkit
100%. So helpful. So, because basically I never went back to camera assisting. So anyways, I was on a Beyonce job in 2011. I had done probably 10 union days in the last 5 or 6 years. I was always very upfront. I'd call the union and say, hey, or I'd have production call the union and say, this guy's not a union member. We want him to work on this concert at Radio City. This guy, I shot a few smallish union commercials as a young person. And I'd always call and be like, I want to join the union. I don't have any union clients. And they'd be like, and they were very good with me. They were like, we're going to let you go. We're going to let you go. Production's going to pay. So that went on for a few years. I was on a pretty cool Beyonce job at Rose, because Roseland's a very pretty small venue. It was like 10, 11, the red camera was still a big thing. And production was just told
this was a music video?
Yeah, it was a concert. It was a concert. It was like a 10 camera concert. I was just one of the operators. But production, when they submitted the names, they picked 2 people and they said, these guys can't do it, period. No matter what you pay in. Ari Issler, I don't remember the other operator, was like, you have to join the union if you want to do this job. And it was actually what was great for me is at the time I was just about like, it was a great thing to be able to travel and shoot bands and be, works on every continent in the world besides Antarctica, so, but the great opportunity was I had friends, I had gone to school with Ben Cutchins, who was a good friend of mine. I had, I knew, Reed Morano, I looked up to very much, and had done a couple short films with Rachel Morrison, was a good friend of mine. So it was like these people who are now, very successful filmmakers were shooting tiers, we're trying to shoot, $3, $4, $8 million movies. So I already had a relationship with them in a creative language and a trust where I, could come in and start doing small movies. So I joined as an operator. And, it was certainly an education. We'll talk about that. I wasn't ready to be an A-camera operator, but on small movies, I think my passion and what I had learned, went a long way. I had to kind of relearn, from, people like yourself in terms of like how to exist in that world. But so I started doing tiers, which led to, and then that led to the sort of like when I met you was like the explosion of television, right? Which was, 2013, 2014. 2013.
Like Unhappy-ish, which I mentioned
Unhappy-ish, right.
Yeah.
And the best thing that ever happened to me really was Ben called me to do Happy-ish, and he was like, I'd really like you to do a camera, but the producers, want somebody with more of a resume. And I said, sure. Like, I don't know this world was my instinct, maybe my middle-class humility. I don't know. But, and it was the best thing that ever happened, because if I had, for some reason, someone, gave me that job, I would have gotten destroyed and I wouldn't have learned anything, but I I learned how to run a set, from yourself and others. And, even doing like the Mozart in the Jungle pilot was the same thing. Ben shot that. And, I did B and Jeff Molstock today. And I just, I found people that were kind of instant mentors because I was like, wow, these people are really good at what they do. And they're involved in so many things to make the shot good. I always said if I ever like won anything, which is not much for us to win, but I'd say, I would like, thank you. So, I have two people I really think of, which is yourself and Ben Seminoff, in terms of just learning so much from. And I always say, Dave Comite's taught me how to run a set, without being an asshole. And Ben Seminoff taught me when to be an asshole.
All right, I'm going to take the Ben part out of that because I can't speak to that, but that's very nice of you. I showed up on Happy-ish, and Ben Cutchins, who shot it, I didn't know him, and I didn't know you.
Right.
And I don't really remember. Did you not know what you were doing? Because I don't remember that.
No, it's not. I don't think it's not know what I'm doing, but like the difference, when you're on a TV show and you're on anything, right, that's a 2-camera shoot, that's like, ambitious in any way, whether it's scope, location, and you haven't run a set, especially working in New York. That's a whole other conversation, but New York's not the easiest city to work in. One of my closest friends in the business has produced and AD'd movies everywhere in the world. And he says point blank, it's the hardest city to work in.
I would agree with that, actually. Yeah. There's a weird,
for so many reasons. Yeah. For so many reasons, whether it's just all the personalities or the logistics or, people just, kind of wearing all anyways, it's just like you have to, this is a whole thing. I guess we'll just talk about operating, right? So it's like you're responsible. You're the intersection of so many things. And, people talk about below the line as being, on set, like production designers, directors of photography, I know they're technically below the line positions, but they have a different relationship to the project. They prep, they have agents, you know what I mean? They're hired in a much different way. So this is a funny story. I had a friend of mine who's now he's very talented. He shoots a lot of kind of commercials now, but he was an assistant for a long time. He was operating his first union movie, and he called me halfway through. I was like, how's it going? He's like, why does everyone hate me so much? And I was like, and I thought about it for a second and thought of, back a few years, I was like, and even more recently in New York, I said, nobody hates you. I was like, honestly, it's going to sound very unromantic, but you're basically the best paid, highly regarded person that anyone can be openly mad at for little to no reason.
You're a target that's accessible. Is what it comes
you're
down
a target.
To. And you have some responsibility, but not enough to actually change anything that needs to be changed most of the time. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Or you can do that and get yourself in trouble, like I have. But that's a whole nother piece of advice. So it's like, here's the thing. It's like, and you're just kind of on an island, right? The first and the first and second run the department, right? They do a great job of making sure everything's scheduled, they're making sure the additionals are coming in, all this stuff on a TV show. And you're just sort of on this island trying to make every shot better, right? So you're always asking people for things. You're always working closely with, hopefully, that's how I do. It's like everyone does a job differently and every show is different. I've been lucky enough to consistently be on things where there's enough time and money to be detail oriented. So it's like you're constantly working with the set decks. You're constantly working with props. You're working with the grips. You're working obviously with the director and cinematographer. You're working, somewhat with the electricians. You're just this nexus, and you're on an island, and all you're trying to do is make every shot better. So you're really annoying people. It's like you try to do it kindly, but it's like you're constantly asking for things, right? Because in order to sort of create, because you are like the implementer of the director of photography and the director's vision. So it's like you become, I think, for really, like in my mind, below the line starts with us.
It's a really good way to put it. Let me ask, going back to Happy-ish, let me ask you a question. And I'm not looking, I just want to say this ahead of time. I'm not looking for you to say, like, to boost me up here. But you said you went into it not really knowing, like, exactly what an 8-camera operator did. And then by working, you kind of learned some of that. Like, do you remember some of the things that you learned that you were like, oh, I didn't even realize this happened, or something that impressed upon you, or was it just an overall thing?
Yeah, the thing is, it's not that I didn't know how to do the job. It's that the job, on a $2, $3, $4, $5 million movie, versus the sort of the pressure of a feature film or a major television show is very different. It's like I finished the first season of Ozark, and my wife and I kind of, we had a newborn. My wife very kindly said to me, one morning, I think you just need to be kind to yourself, which is a way of saying, like, could you fucking leave us alone, please? It's like your job becomes to make every shot the most successful it can be, the fastest it can be, right? It's like you're like, how can this shot be perfect and be fast? You know what I mean? And not that you have to, it's like, you don't have to, it's like that, whatever that Marine thing, fast is, what is it? Slow is fast. Slow is safe, safe is fast.
Something like that.
Actually, I don't even know the saying, but I'm a firm believer in that, right? I'm not on set freaking out trying to work fast, but like, I know the pressure of each shot, right? It's like, and it's like you feel it on some level, you know what I mean? Like, fortunately, again, like, I'm not in a situation where it's go, 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 and it's not safe and none of that. It's just a matter of like, we get paid in 6-minute increments. You know what I mean? It's like, was Ari at crew parking at 6:12 or 6:24? Let's talk about it. Like, have you had UPM wake you up after doing 15 hours to tell you to take your turnaround? I was like, I'm asleep. You know what I mean? My phone doesn't. The only person to get through right now is my wife. So I know you called me twice. And so now it's 18 hours into the day. You're waking me up to tell me to take my turnaround.
But actually, your point of the fact that we get paid in 6-minute increments, I never thought about it before. But that's like so sort of indicative of how like ridiculously, how the speed of everything is so important. But I really like how you put that. I've never thought about that before, because you are trying to do the best you can as quickly as you can. Quickly probably isn't the right word.
You're doing the best you can with the most efficient solution you can.
As efficiently as possible. Yeah, that's a better way to put it.
If it's not going well, I mean, every operator's been there. All of a sudden, you got other people telling you what might be more efficient. Or you got the key grip saying, so you have a really good key grip saying, okay, let's do this the wrong way into the walkie. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, but I was young. You know what I mean? So it's like to just watch you calmly run set, calmly, to watch like Jeff Molstock, just operate a techno crane so elegantly, right? Yeah. With as if nothing was going on, and just putting the pieces together was just like, oh, you can do this and feel like a human. Everyone can feel like a human being. It's like whatever stress. Yeah, it's like not that I've screamed or no, but it's like whatever stress you're feeling. There's a level of confidence that comes with years of the wheels being just feeling natural, of relationships. And Mozart in the Jungle pilot was actually, I guess, my first really big job. I was on B camera.
That was before Happy-ish?
I think so, because I didn't do that show because even though Kutchin shot that show, I took it off to make my movie. Yeah. Oh, okay. And then he got Happy-ish afterwards, and I was, lucky enough to join. But the Mozart in the Jungle pilot was like, and it was like, it was very clear, like, and this props, Barris, who's a props and mostly props guy in New York, great guy, took me aside and said, listen, it's very clear that you know what you're doing and that you care, and maybe you're talented, but when you're touching, when you keep touching things, which you're not supposed to do, right? He was like, it's also clear, I'm not worried about the rules. It's just like, it tells everyone you're green, that you're new to this world.
Interesting.
So it's like, well, what, he's like, so he asked me, like, what do you want to give off right now? You know what I mean? And it's interesting advice. It's like people will respond more to like, I'm this is his world also, and I learned a lot from, Gabu, Camilo, Tenero, all these like guys that nobody listening to this podcast is going to know. But like legendary, 20-year in New York set decks and props, and, knowing that they too, care, and they too will respond to, an energy. It's like they can show up and just do the job and not care. And as operators can too, or they can make things better. And I think that's the sort of thing that I try to do, is like, I'm not like I'd like to think I just want to get the job done, right? I'm not like the most pleasant thank you person, but it's like respect for people's, try to involve people. Oh, come take a look at the monitor. What do you think? Like, where do you think we should put the chess pieces in the foreground?
Well, the the thing you just mentioned about being green is really interesting to me, because I have a tendency, and I think honestly, and I'm actually honest with props people when I start working with them, because I came off of ER, which was like, there was stuff everywhere. And it was like,
all the time.
And the props guys even understood, and set decorators, like that you were going to move things in the foreground. And I was sort of brought up that way. So it's my tendency. And I always try, obviously, to include people and whatever. But what I tell them sometimes, and I never thought about it the way you thought. I don't think anybody with my hair being the way it is now thinks that I'm green, but that's another story. But
well, this is a long time ago for both of you.
Yeah, but I always try to explain to them, it's not that you can't do your job and you're not good at your job. It's actually that there's something that I'm looking for, like a glint or whatever, and I feel I'm not good enough to explain it to you as fast as I can just go over and tweak it. Right. So can I go? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I would say, it's funny, and this is true for so many things in the business. Like, I actually, on these sort of the credits that you actually, mentioned, the credits that mean something, that, because of the quality of the production and all that, and the reception from the public, I haven't had those issues on those jobs, because like the people also like those, it's like, this was good advice when I was young, just to like, I didn't stop tweaking the foreground, but it was just like, I knew, when to just, when to sit back and when to get involved. But it's like, I think a seasoned prop person just would tell me like, well, you see what I don't see, you know what I mean? So it's like, if you're going to, it's like, you can have that area, you know what I mean? If it's a foot and a half from the camera, just like, just tell me what you're doing, anyways, there's no, listen, there's no right way. It's like, every relationship is different on set. So it's like, it's more about navigating personalities, especially in New York City. So it's like, as like the more seasoned people you work with, the less of an issue it becomes, because you know when to be really respectful. I've only been grieved a few times. I've only been grieved by people that are quite young, to be honest with you, in that, like, anyways, someone says like,
I think that whole thing about I think that's really great advice for younger operators, because again, when you're moving something, you're not doing it maliciously, hopefully. I mean, maybe some people do, but if you're doing that, that's another story if you're doing that. But how it can be perceived, I think that's really fascinating. It's so funny because you've been talking about New York, and it reminds me of, I mean, I've moved back east twice, but the first time we moved back, I know Mariska Hargitay really well. So I called her up and I was like, hey, can you throw my name to your camera people? And she's like, yeah, sure. So, and like a week later, I got a call to go to Law and Order SVU. And they were like down like at the bottom of Manhattan, and those weird, like down by the pier, and those weird stages down there. And they were just like, they sent us off to another part to like, classic B camera thing, like go shoot this little piece here, set it up and get it ready or whatever. So we needed to put dance floor down, and our dolly grip was like this guy who, I mean, I remember him as being 80. I'm sure he wasn't, but he was like just a classic old school New York grip. And he's working by himself mostly, and he's bringing in, boards and putting them down, and one of them overlaps. So I went down to go push that, and he goes, don't touch that. And I was like, huh? And the camera assistant pulled me over, and he's like, yeah, don't touch that. He'll grieve you. And I'm like, but he's going to die. Like, I'm not comfortable with it. Like, but it's a different union here. Just don't mess with it. Like,
that's New York. Yeah. No.
So it is a different place. There's no question. So at what point did you sort of like feel in your career, did you feel like I can jump on any camera, any set as an 8-camera operator and be proficient?
I don't know. Yeah. I think
you're not there yet.
Last week. No, I mean, I'll answer that. I'm going to answer it with a different answer, which I think is so. It's like whenever you read, like I've heard directors talk about this and actors talk about this, and I think it's actually true in all levels of filmmaking. But like if you read directing books, they talk about actors as, not every book, but I think the smart ones, like every actor needs something different, right, from a director. Like it's like, I mean, I've worked with a wide variety of incredible actors, like Laura Linney. Get out of her way. You know what I mean? She's already thought about every decision you possibly could imagine as a director for her character, right? And the entire show and everyone else's character. Dakota Johnson, tell her exactly what you want. She's an incredible technician, but she's not theater. She doesn't she doesn't have a lot of opinions. She wants to do the job and do the job well, and you should have a vision for her. Jason Bateman, let him learn his lines while he's in makeup. So because he's incredible and he can do it, right? But I mean, and that said, he's amazing in DTF St. Louis. What a performance!
He's amazing.
I've worked with him for years. Yeah, but he's really watched that. I mean, it's not a perfect show. It's fun and it's sad, and I think it's very good. And Stephen Conrad's incredible, but Jason's performance is amazing. So I think, anyways, yeah, I recommend it. So I think that's the kind of the spirit I take to set when working with different DPs and directors. Is every DP and director needs something different from me, right?
That's great.
It's like, and so it just makes sense. It's just like, and it's like when you're navigating personalities, it's like in a way every set director needs something slightly different. But focusing on our real responsibility, which is working, to sort of to implement, what the director and DP are thinking, and also to, to some degree, put our own opinion on it, and that may change. I mean, you know me well enough. I'm not like I'm not short of opinions, but like that changes shot to shot. You know what I mean? It's like some shots are going to need a lot from you, and some shots are going to need very little from you, and some directors are going to need a lot from you, and some DPs are not going to want, are going to want you to just execute. And I think when I really learned that, and the benefit of how beautiful, like it made me love filmmaking again. When I was feeling like I was kind of successful in the industry, and knowing that, and when that happened was my first kind of big, some other people not big, a camera job was The Outsider, and I had just come back to New York after doing The Outsider, which was a very imposed, very a lot of wheels work when the camera moves, not a lot of steady cam, not a lot of hand, almost no handheld until the finale. Just a very composed, very people exactly in the window where you want them, people exactly in the reflection where you want them, lots of marks.
It's purposeful,
sure. And it's like that, and having grown up on that in Ozark, that's kind of, and having Ben Seminoff as a mentor, that's kind of where my brain started to go. Like I loved all kinds of films, but that's how I started to see filmmaking. And just when that happened, I got asked to fill in for B Camera on an amazing miniseries. One of the best things I've ever worked on, I had a very small role in it, called I Know This Much Is True, which is with Mark Ruffalo. He plays twins, and it's directed by an incredibly talented man named Derek Cianfrance, who made Blue Valentine. Now, Derek sets no marks, no dollies. I mean, you have a dolly technically to support the camera. The camera never moves. You're shooting film. You're on 11:1. And I was a little bit freaked out. This is the first job after my first kind of big, very calculated job. I'm filling in on B Camera, and I mistakenly on day 2, like I'm kind of in awe. Everyone's like, this is really interesting. The photography's interesting. They're doing it in a different way than I am. Like I was like, I told Adalia, I was like, well, maybe put a slider on just in case, he's like, yeah, we don't really do that here. And I thought, oh, maybe this is just like a New Yorkism. But then I realized they really don't do that here. Wow. They just put the camera in a place. And Derek, I would say Derek is extremely talented. I've done some commercials with him since. I would call him like an art house football coach. He's like, he sets you up for success. You know what I mean? It's like, it's amazing. You find this beautiful moments on your zoom lens without the camera moving. And he just puts you in the right place, and he's got the right location, and he's putting all these things together, and he doesn't want to rehearse. He doesn't want to, I asked to put a mark down, and I thought, it was like I kicked the director in the face was the look I got. And I thought I was done. But like, I think I was very enthused and inspired to try to learn this way because I had so much respect for the films Derek had made before. Yeah. And I only did like a few days of B Camera. And when the B Camera operator came back, they asked me to shoot second unit. I mean, it was very simple second unit. It's not like, but I could expose film, and the DP and director realized I had like a similar sensibility, and I was excited by the work. So I ended up shooting second unit for 2 or 3 weeks. And it's like probably in a way, it's kind of one of the best projects I've ever worked on. I mean, I had much less to say. It's hard to say when I had Strangler, I prepped the whole show. I was very involved in everything and got nominated for an SOC award next to Jeff Haley. Not the person whose bio you want to be next to. Necessarily, but yeah. So anyways, I would say, so that's like the biggest thing that I feel makes me able to go to every set, is that the first thing I'm looking for is, what does this set need from me? What does this director and DP need from me, rather than like, how do I work? And that was really hit home because of that experience. Now, I work on a lot of sets where it's like, hard to tell what people need because maybe they don't know how to say what they need. But, it's kind of our job to watch and listen. And that's why I always, and I even got it on this deal that I'm negotiating now, which is rare. Like I just asked, I said, let me, guys, let me be on the tech scout. Like it's rare. It's somewhat common in movies, pretty rare in television, very rare in multiple season episodic. But I'm like, you've hired this directing producer showrunner who's going to do half the episodes. You've got a really talented DP. Let me listen to these guys for 3 to 4 days. Like, and they're guys in this sense, but on this job. But let me listen to these people because, it's like, it's always a benefit in some way. So it's a great litmus test too. It's like, the green M&Ms story. It's like, there's certain green M&Ms moments. If you're talking to a UPM and they're like, their head's going to explode when you ask for like 3 to 4 days of prep instead of 1 as a non-steady operator or 0. So wait, and you want to be on the makeup test? Like, yeah, I'd like to meet the actors. So it's like when people respond positively or understand, then it's like you have an understanding of who you're working with.
Yeah. No, but so let me ask you a question. Do you have litmus tests like that when you first get onto a set where you're trying to figure out who's who I can trust, what people need?
Yeah.
Like you said, what people need. Is there a way to figure that out, or is it just listening and
I think it's really just listening. And it's also like the best thing about listening, and there's 2 ways to say this. There's like, I'm going to trick you way, or just like, but I think it's more holistic than that. The more you listen to people, whether it's the director or the DP or the actors or whoever, but in this case, because of us, these 3 people, the more you can get what you need from people, because you can frame it back to them as because it's like you're trying to achieve what they want. And then, some people don't have the visual language to get there, or some people are distracted by the fact that, they didn't sleep or whatever it is. It's like there's a million reasons why communication is not perfect on a film set. It's like not everyone you work with is an accomplished auteur. So it's like, you have to just be there and listening so what I'm saying is like, at first I used to think of it as like, this is my way to get my idea through to help us, and I'm gonna sell back to you as your idea. It's like a really, like luckily most people that watch this just want to be camera operators. Like I wouldn't say that broadly in public, but there is a more holistic version, which is just like, that's you're helping them interpret based on your own expertise.
What you just said, I mean, you're still doing it for the benefit of the project. I mean, your vision may be different
Absolutely.
than someone else's, but you're not doing it for your own reasons. You're going, I think there's a better way to tell this story. And that's something I struggle with often. If I'm working on something like I worked on with you on Ozark, to me, that was a level jumping show. Cause it's like, I walk in there and within 5 minutes, I'm listening to Bateman, even if he wasn't directing. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy's a filmmaker. Like, these are the type of people I want to work with. But then when you work with someone who's not Jason Bateman and you realize like, oh, I can see something that you can't, like, how do you deal with that when you go, you can't see what I'm seeing? Yeah. And it's frustrating because it's like, there's gold under that rock and I'd love you to have that gold, but I'm not allowed to move the rock,
Right. It's hard. It's a hard thing to navigate. I mean, I could dork out about that question so much because so much of that is like, you want to come up with the elegant solution, the cinematic solution, the efficient solution because often the director is suggesting, well, I want this, this, and this. And it's like, well, how do I do that efficiently? So there's no right answer. I have another answer, like a half answer to that question, which I think has helped me a lot, which is something that I always think about now, still. Remind myself, which is, I was working on a job and it was a very it was really good. I was on B camera and the A camera operator. Like there was a lot of good ideas. The director was receptive to them, and everyone was working together. But and at some point, like I was trying to figure something out, and the director says to me, "Show me better, don't show me different." And I was like, wow, that's a really good advice for a B camera operator. It's like, or when to open your mouth. It's like, when do you take the time to think about what they want? It's like, how do I make that more efficient? If I'm going to pitch another idea, it's not saying it's subjective, right? But it's like, just take that 30 seconds and think, is my idea actually better or is it just different? Because his point was like, yeah, like, Ari, you have great ideas. I'm happy you're here. But like, it's like, we got to do an idea. You know what I mean? So it's like, I can't listen to everyone all the time, because it's like, it happened to be, everyone was, the kind of relationship where it was like, everyone was comfortable with each other. So it was like, it wasn't a lot of egos, but at the same time, it's like, we can't always fill the room with ideas. We have to like fill the room with, filmmaking. Yeah. So which is just like, but it's just like, I say that to people all the time. It's just like, it's subjective, but just take that beat and be like, is this better? Or like, if I think about it for a minute, maybe the director's idea is really good if I could just do this and like connect this shot to this shot, I mean, and then there's just pressures that there's directors under pressure that we're not under, right? So it's like, I did 3 days because of COVID. I did 3 days on a show. I guess I got to just say people, it doesn't matter. But I didn't know the director. I was covering an 8-camera operator who had COVID. The DP got COVID. Everyone, Sylvester Stallone got. By the time we worked, everyone had COVID. So you had a director's first day, a DP who'd never been on the show, an A operator who'd never been on the show, and an AD who didn't prep his episode.
Oh my God!
And we kind of like, we did good together, right? Because like, the number one, who's one of the biggest actors, of our lifetime, had COVID. And when, so we were doing these little like dance floor, like phone conversation oneers, and like, just like tastefully on the Moses, and like, that's like, and he was a New York indie guy. It's like the filmmaking. And then Sly came back and it was like 3 cameras on Sly, go. You know what I mean? But that's just the reality of it too. So obviously you have to think about all that. It's just what do you, it's just what job are you on? Not, and what setups can you make art, and what setups are you pointing 3 cameras at Sylvester Stallone? But yeah, the idea, it's like that you're gonna have to edit this shit. But it's like, show me better, don't show me different. Such a good thought to have as an operator before you pitch something.
That's fantastic. No, and the thing that I like about it, that it's so succinct and so true. The question, of course, becomes, and this is going to change with every director, I would think, is where's the line between better and different? Because my better and different, my better maybe his different, so there's that, right?
But it's subjective, but you just taking the beat to examine might save you a little bit of heartache and buy you some, and just buy you some goodwill with not always having a different idea.
And the thing that I often say to younger B camera operators when I see it happening is I just go over and it's the same idea, but nowhere near as well put, is I just go, you don't have to suggest everything you think of. Like, which is kind of the thing of, you got to be aware of the whole picture here. And, sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. No, that's great. That's great advice. So tell me about Ozark. When did you come on season 3?
No, I was in Ozark season 1. It was my first time.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I was a B camera operator for the first season and a half. Yeah. And I went home. I mean, that was the agreement. I went home after half a season because my family, because my family wasn't able to be in Atlanta. So I did a season and a half. And then season 3, I did The Outsider instead. Bateman started it and he went back to Ozark. So that was my first big 8-camera opportunity. And then I came back to Ozark for season 4.
That's why I was thinking that. Okay, that makes sense.
So, but in a similar mold to, Hutchins originally was one of the 2 DPs to start the show. And, they brought me on as the B camera operator, and I was pretty quickly, I just kind of, I pretty quickly fell into shooting some second unit stuff just by gaining some trust with their first DP and already having that relationship with Pepe. With Hutchins, and also building that relationship with Pepe, who shot the first block. Ozark was, it's where I met Ben Seminoff, who was, like I said, like a very, just been so supportive and such a, learned so much, from him technically, creatively, in terms of the great, amazing operator and now director, full time. And so, it was like, I kind of grew up on Ozark, and it was a resume builder because the world, liked it. And we, the filmmaking was good. The acting was good. And it was a show that was very popular. So, that's, I don't know.
Yeah, no. So tell me about when I showed up there in season 4, I guess in 5, which we shot as one season, but they released as 2, whatever it was. And you called me in to do B camera. I mean, the thing that I remember specifically was like right off the bat, you were like, "There's no tilt," and I was like, "Ah, so we keep it like sort of, and then Sean, what was it, our DP, Sean Kim." I think on the first episode, like I was off by 0.1 degrees or something like that. And he's like, you got to zero it out. And I'm like, oh, you guys are like really serious about this. But I found it to be actually really, I'd never been in something that had constrictions like that before. And I mean, we broke it obviously when like you're low on the ground looking up, but whatever. But I'm wondering how you felt about it, because I was sort of like, oh, it's kind of cool to have these constrictions that actually help tell the story, because I think it actually affected the way the story was told. Was that from day one?
No, it wasn't from day one. It was a Ben Seminoff thing, but and Cutchins also. But Seminoff wasn't the original A operator either. But he came in halfway through season 1, and I'm not sure if it started in the beginning of season 2. So, I mean, the zero tilt thing it's really like a and later on you told me that even that Gordon Willis was that we talked about it after the show, and you were saying there was an operator, a friend of yours that worked for Gordon Willis. It's like I work for some really talented people that really like straight lines. But it comes from like the easiest reference for people is David Fincher, right? House of Cards. There was no tilting. The camera boomed. The line stayed straight. You know what I mean? And listen, I've already mangled this answer, but I also not the person who came up with putting that in Ozark. So it's like, I think there's talk about like, Seminoff and Cutchins and Bateman talk about the idea that, people are constricted within a frame. Frame becomes a prison, like in a drama, right? It's like there's so much pressure on all these characters and all the lines are straight. And where do you go? Because they look like barriers, in a way. And then, of course, the common bottom thing that came out of the zero tilt is a great. It was a Seminoff solution, which he has there's like a whole article written about it. Yeah, but
I was going to say, I don't know how we could explain that without visuals.
I don't think it's necessary. You can just we'll find a link to the article where Ben talks about it.
I actually will put that up there, because I remember when you explained it to me, I was like, wait, I don't understand, and it took me a long time to figure it out. But anyway, we're talking about something people don't understand. But that must have been a dream gig as a B camera operator that first year and a half, to like be in something that good.
It was. I mean, it was also just kind of finding a language. Like Bateman was not as experienced as he's an incredible director, but he was really kind of learning what he liked. And he would say, I'm watching this show, like, watch The Night Of. And, it's like happened to be that Seminoff had done it, and Igor, who also did House of Cards. Igor Martinovic is an incredibly talented cinematographer that I've had the pleasure of working with multiple times, but, who did House of Cards season 2, kind of the Fincher school, and did The Night Of and won an ASC award for The Night Of. And, so it's like these sort of visual references that we all sort of appreciate. We were all kind of learning it a little bit together, and then it's like, then you go and break them. It's like, then Black Rabbit becomes like an aggressive sort of like, how do you make something really messy and, but that's elegant at the same time. And it's like, I think as, it's hard to say saying artists sounds self-important, but as people who are lucky enough to make creative decisions in their livelihood, it's like you get interested in one thing and then you get interested in breaking that thing. And, and how can it's like, how can we, whatever, we're artists. How can we visually tell a story differently? Absolutely. But that was the school that I kind of grew up in. So that translated really well to The Outsider, and, and just having the discipline. The thing is like, and working, here's an interesting place to take this. Maybe. It's like the idea of being the guardian of the frame versus, it's like Cutchins would say, if Cutchins was, frustrated or not, whatever, say to a B camera operator, like, we don't move the camera to fix this. Like, move everything. You move the car. Don't move. The camera's where I want it to be. If I want to see less car, don't pan. You know what I mean? Just move the car.
Move the car. Yeah.
But but it's a very caffeinated way of saying, like, you're the photographer, you're the guardian of this frame. This is where you want the person in the window. It's like you have, and it's like you learn to do it like speed chess, like, you know, it's going to happen. So you're talking to this person, you're talking to this person, but it's like, that's the frame you want. And I think unless you're really departing from that stylistically, which I'm all for, like you can make something with no marks and you can throw the camera on your shoulder, you can find something beautiful. I don't think you have to, but I think that's the litmus test is like, do you want, you know, with a new DP is like, do you understand how we can do this and we can get exactly what you want without compromising in the same time that constantly compromising is going to take us.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, do you learn? That's what an A-camera operator to me is like. Do you learn? It's like you're like playing the piano, you know, or I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm not a musician, so it's like a flawed analogy. But it's like you're a cook. It's better, right? It's like you have all these ingredients to make the shot, but it's, you know, it's like the shot's where you want it, right? It's not. You're not going to just be like, oh, we can fix it by going like this. So that's like, I think the cinematographers that I learned a lot from, you know, think that way.
I'll jump off that by sharing this with you is, it was COVID and you called me up and said, hey, would you come out and jump on B camera on Ozark? And I probably lied to you at the time, but I hadn't seen Ozark
right.
because I have a weird thing when something is really, really big and everybody's talking about it. I tend to not want to like be part of it because I want to like I'm worried the hype's too much or whatever. I don't know why. But anyway, and I think I said I could come out for a month because of COVID and not being able to go back and forth. You were like, why? So I came out and first of all, I think my first day on set, the two things that I were blown away by were, again, Bateman just being on a level, well, actually three things I should say. Bateman being on a level that like, he'd start to explain a shot, like, you know, four ideas in, assuming that you were already on that level. And I was just like, this is great. And then of course I have to add into it because I can't not, like you said before, watching Laura Linney was just like, you're in the presence of greatness right there. It was awe inspiring. But the other thing was that you and I had sort of like kept in touch over the years or whatever, but I don't know how many years were in between Happy-ish and Ozark. Like 10 or 8, or I don't know. It was a while, but whatever it was. And I remembered you from Happy-ish, but like, you know, that wasn't like a massively camera heavy show. It was a 30-minute comedy and it was better than that by a long shot because Cutchins did great work. But so I sort of remembered you, and then I walked on the set and I was like, holy crap, like you're a really amazing A-camera operator. And I remember it's so funny you were saying that about learning from me, because I was like at this point where COVID wise and some other things, just some shows I'd been in, I'd been like, I'm just facilitating. I'm just like pointing at stuff and shooting. I'm not creating anything. It's driving me nuts. I'm really frustrated. And then I came out on Ozark, which I'm so thankful that you called me for that, because I was like, oh my God, these people are like, no, they like really care about the frame, like you were talking about, and don't move the car, like do move the car, don't just pan and all that. And I remember, like, I think day 1 or day 2, you were setting up a shot, and Mark Catania, amazing dolly grip, who I've been fortunate enough to work with many times since, and just incredible, was measuring out the thing, because you wanted the track exactly center, and I was like, wow, that's pretty intense. And then I watched it and I was like, nope, that's exactly how it should be. It so made me like enjoy what we do again, because I was like, these guys are taking the time to do it right. And by the way, still being efficient. I mean, you know,
absolutely.
So it was just a really unbelievable experience to be a part of that. And then when you ended up, you know, heading home and asked me to jump into A, I was like, absolutely. But I sort of felt like I'm not going to do it justice the way that you do, just because my personality isn't as specific about things as you are. And so I tried to step into that and hopefully continue that. But
your work looked great.
That was, well, I think all of ours did. That was a joyous opportunity. There's no question about it. It was really incredible. Did you, when you went from that onto something else I can't imagine that you went from that onto something that was as high end as that. Is it hard to step onto other things that aren't run that way, or do you just sort of like let things go and go, okay, this is the new tapestry that I'm working on?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a challenge even on things that are quote run that way, like especially with different directors, like as you saw, like we'll just we'll say that for 14 episodes. I feel like for me, I always show up with the same toolbox. Like I don't get to use it all sometimes. But like I'm just making the shots. Like it's like it's like in a way it's like it's like you start off. I mean, I statements, as they say in therapy. I started off just like, oh, this will look cool. Like this looks cool, right? When I was 20 years old, 16 years old, taking pictures of my friends, like, and it's kind of like, well, it's like, yeah, well, this looks cool. And I've learned so much. I've watched thousands of movies since and worked on a bunch of stuff and learned from great camera operators and et cetera, et cetera. So it's like I feel like I'm utilizing. I feel like that's what keeps me going, is that I'm not working on anything where it's like so bad that I feel like I just have to throw out my toolbox. Like I'm still there, like just making the shot a little bit better, and sometimes making the shot a lot better. Bill Dill, famous cinematographer who ran the the AFI cinematography program for a long time. Yeah. He's teaching people about camera operators, because a lot of these, these great young DPs go there and they come from indies or they come from Europe and they've never worked with camera operators. They go, why do I work with a camera operator? So his whole thing is like, camera operators don't make the work faster, they make the work better. Yep. And then his other line is, camera operators make every shot 10 to 90% better. You know what I like that a lot. That's great. So it's like, ideally, or they fuck it up and then it's negative 90%. Like his point is like, if it's a success, you have to learn, you learn. So I think that's it. It's just like, you for me, it's like, I've never, you understand what each job is pretty quickly. But like it's physically and mentally and emotionally taxing to think like that on Ozark. It's not like everyone's there like, like, you know what I mean? Like it's, it's a big production with lots of people and, it's not New York, so maybe it's a little easier, but, it's like you're still, if that's your goal and you're using that whole, really beating this analogy to death, but if you're using that whole toolbox, then it's like, it's taxing, it's like, regardless, it's a taxing job to work at that level. Sometimes it's nice to just like, just use a few of my tools today. I'm like, it's like, I don't know. I'm not lucky enough to like, I'm not working for the, I'm not working on the coolest, hippest, and I say that in a positive sense, like movies where there's like, the actor who's like, everything he says, or she says kind of goes, and we all just, it's like I'm in a little bit more of a trade part of my life where it's like different directors.
It's funny that you say that, because Ozark was one of those shows that I remember being absolutely exhausting, and it was exhausting because it was on such a high level that you were operating, you and I mean everybody was operating on a high level, but like not that you ever want to drop the ball, but like the ball is moving so fast and that you're like constantly trying to keep up with it, which was great, but it was taxing. There's no question about it.
I think it's almost it's just an exhausting job.
Well, I want to move on from that into something that I don't think enough people talk about. But first, actually, I want to ask you this. I just need to give a little love to Ben Cutchins, who you've worked much more than I have with, and I'm so jealous of that, because he's fantastic, right? Like working with Ben is just the best. You guys it sounds like you guys kind of came up together. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I met Ben. I was pulling focus on a student film, and we were shooting in what at the time was a kind of shady neighborhood. Now it's like you can't $3,500 for a studio, but but I remember we were shooting this like kind of abandoned place, and it was like she shot the short that went on to go to Cannes and Sundance. But at the time, like I just showed up. The other assistant had quit, and it was like $100 a day, and and I get there, and this is like Ben Cutchins, who already had this reputation, like very talented young cinematographer just from school. Like I knew his name, but I didn't know him at all. And the director was like crying because they couldn't find live chickens, for the shot or whatever. And Ben was just kind of like, had put like every light that like the school gave him through a bed sheet, like in the window. I'm like, I'm just getting the camera ready, like looking around. And then I saw Ben, like there was a shot of a kid in a bathtub, another kid behind talking to him. And he kept messing with this towel, like kept messing with this towel on the bathtub in the foreground. And, I'm about to look at the monitor, like building the camera, like, my second, who like I just met 32 minutes ago, like trying to just get them to stop eating, and like introduce them to the slate, it's like, and so like, and finally I look at the monitor and the towel is gorgeous. This towel in the foreground. It was like the first time in my life where I was like, wow, foreground element. You know what I mean?
That's
and
so
that was how I met Ben. And yeah. And we had a lot of just mutual interests, and we spent a lot of time, after 9/11 being unemployed and eating with $6 huevos rancheros together. So we were friends, but he's just a very, he's obviously very talented, and we've done, we did a bunch of tiers together, meaning kind of movies under $10 million. And then he brought me along on other stuff. And then, and that's kind of what made me so proud of, you have these moments sometimes in this industry where like your mentors become your peers. Maybe I almost like, and that was sort of Boston Strangler for me, to be able to come in and prep with him and really have a voice, not he's a cinematographer, I think he would say the same thing. But yeah, it's been a really great relationship. We both obviously try to grow as human beings along the way as well. Yeah. But
so that was the movie that I want to talk about, because Boston Strangler. Look, I watched it when it came out because of course you guys did it, so I'm going to watch it. And I think I may have even called you afterwards, and I was like, it is an astonishingly well-made movie. That movie is so beautiful, and I will tell you that it's one of the few movies I've seen where every single frame is particular. I mean, you could see that someone put thought into every frame in that movie. The movement in that movie is incredible. I just texted I texted both of you, I think, the other day, because I watched it again, and man, the use of shallow depth of field to where there's a group of people, and like she as the reporter is the only one who's in focus. I mean, it is so phenomenal. So first of all, how did you get to do all of prep? Because I want to figure this out so I can do it, because it's my dream.
Well, I mean, this is a particular. So this is a very lucky situation for me, because that director is the same director who hired me to make that documentary.
The hip hop movie?
Yeah.
The hip hop.
Yeah. The guy who directed that is the same. That. Yeah. So me, him and Ben made Crown Heights together, which was like a $2.5 million tier 0 that won.
I visited you guys on that movie.
Yeah. It won the audience award at Sundance.
Yeah.
So that's an advantage. Advice means nothing. So it's like, I mean, I do push for prep and I get it, but in this case, it's like I met every Sunday, we would meet, during production, me and Hutchins and Matt Ruskin, the director. It's like, I was just, I came to the Tech Scouts. I sat in on a few meetings. So it was just it was like, it's funny because at the time it was the biggest movie I'd ever worked on. And it was like we had this great. So it wasn't. But it was like I went to work with my two friends and just tried to make every shot better. Like it was actually like kind of an incredible situation for me because I'd never. The grip crew was like amazing. It's like I don't. It's like not that I've worked with plenty of good grips, but it's like this is a Hollywood movie. This is a $50+ million movie. You got good people, and it's like so. I just was like, I actually felt like I could just concentrate on my lane, and I just happened to have a bit of, I happened to be able to sort of be even more supportive of Ben and Matt because of my personal relationship with them, and also because, we spoke the similar visual language. There were a lot of, they had all these references and a lot of stuff thought out, and then they also had the ability to pivot, and, and Ben did just such great work with it's like I was talking to somebody, Liam Sennett, who's an incredible focus puller, and he was talking about
how. I was just going to mention him. Yeah. Phenomenal.
There was never a focus problem, and we shot wide open 65. But Liam says it really well. It's like there's certain DPs that are just very good at that. It's like sometimes you see low depth of field, and it's like it looks like someone just bought a 5D, and sometimes you see low depth of field, and it looks like art. And it's just like it goes to show that it's like it's like you have to be very good at your job first and foremost before you start shooting at a 1.9 on a 65 millimeter chip, thinking that's the solution. Yeah. So Ben is very good at low depth of field. Igor is very good at low depth of field. It's just like they're really good at lighting, and they're really specific about their choices. Really good at lighting is probably not the word, but excellent. They're excellent. They're channeling Rembrandt. But so it was a lot of things came together. We had an incredible gaffer on that movie who was just so detail oriented, and with Ben, a really, a great Frank Montesanto, a great key grip, who's, and Josh Dreyfus is the gaffer's name. These are all sort of artists in their own way. That really responded to, like, it was like, because there'd be moments where Frank would just be like, what? And be like, what the fuck is going on? Because it's like when I was able to be that voice, because I did all the prep, and I had, and I was shooting second unit, and I was doing, it's like, I was like, I can tell you what's going on. So it was like, people responded to that energy and wanted to make it good. Maddie's a great leader.
Fantastic. Well, it's funny you say that, because I think that's something really important, because if you can explain what's going on, it means, oh, this isn't chaos and this isn't for no reason. Yeah. This is actually hard, but there's a reason for this, and you may not see it, but here it is. Right. And that actually changes the whole conversation.
Maybe that's the way you pitch. Maybe that, for all the operators out there, maybe that's like a good way to pitch being in prep, because there's so many moments where it's like the 11th hour or whatever, where people are just like, what the fuck is going on? And it's like, if you like know what's these people kind of want and need out of everything, and that are not, and it's like, I think operators do that anyways, whether you prep or not. But a good operator knows what we need. Yeah, but it's just like, it helps you be that person in moments of stress also, to just kind of convey what's going on.
So basically, if I pitch, if you can get me into prep, I can possibly stop an insurrection on the crew 30 days into the film. That might be the way to go. But you were talking about, you said something really interesting about the shallow depth of field, and it made me think of, there are people who will use shallow depth of field because it's cool and they like the look. Yeah. And then there's stuff like Boston Strangler, where it's used to tell the story. And it's used so specific, and the shot that actually, there's a lot of shots in there that, actually almost all the shots in there impressed me. But the shot that really impressed me with that was, what's the lead character's name? What's her name? The reporter. I can't think of her name.
Oh my God, I have not. Keira Knightley.
Anyway, it's Keira Knightley. Anyway,
my brain is
anybody who hasn't seen this, by the way, I think it's on Hulu, but go watch this movie. Yeah. Unfortunately, you should see it in a theater, but you probably can't right now. But anyway, there's this point where they basically, she wants to do an actual story, and they're like, no, you got to go over there with the ladies and do the fashion and this. And there's a shot that's a slow push in to a group of women on the table, and everybody's either standing or sitting with their back to you, and she's sitting, and she's the only one who's facing from low down, and it's only focused on her, and it is just such a brilliant. I look at that, and it's like out of Akira Kurosawa's High and Low. It is such a phenomenally composed shot.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that, because it's like, it actually. That was a shot that all three of us, the director, DP, and operator, worked really hard on. That one shot, which was fairly simple, and it was part of a sequence, part of a montage, really, about her not getting what she wants. And it's that particular shot that really goes, it's like, it speaks to, like, or as my friends, as Matt said, good food takes time to prepare, sometimes. And we kept moving the desks, and Matt, who had come to the point, this was later on in the film, and it's people are worn down. It's winter. It's winter Omicron. It's like, everyone had COVID. We're pushing back. It's like we're winter in Boston. We're finally on the stage, and we're up against it. They cut some days right before production. So it's like, we're at the point where we're trusting each other and we're trying to move quickly. And that shot was taking forever. And I wasn't exactly sure what Matt wanted, and Cutchins wasn't sure exactly what Matt wanted. But as it came together, we both were working so hard to keep making it better as we realized what it was. And Grant did talking about it like it was the Berlin Wall or but there's something, but it just became this moment where the three of us sort of just wanting it to be good, and was just really the collaboration. Was really exemplified in that shot. Great. And I use that shot recently as a reference for something that I'm helping my friend animation project. I was just like this, it was like a lunchroom scene, and I was like, like this. It's about this person with this crowd.
Well, and the thing is, like you said, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but in the breadth of the film, and in in that scene, well, that montage sequence, like you said, it's not really a montage, but it sort of is. It's really kind of a nothing shot in the larger picture, but at the same time, it's one of those things that it says so much because of how it's framed, and I'll put it on the page. But I will say, there's a new.
We moved. Sorry, we had these really heavy desks, and we kept moving them. Like I would move them, Matt would move them, and Shawnee. I don't know Shawnee's last name. Wherever you are, Shawnee. It's like this young set deck from Boston. I thought he was going to lose his mind. I bought that guy so much craft beer. He was just like, I don't even think he said thank you, and I didn't even think I wanted him to say thank you. You know what I mean? Like it was like yeah, here you go. He's like, all right, man. Like it was one of those shots where it just like it took a lot to get to where we wanted, but every shot shouldn't be that way, but it was.
No, but I definitely, from you telling me that, I can see how a lot of people on set would be like, why the hell are we taking so much time? But in the final, like I said, look, I pulled that out because it is such an amazing shot and it tells the story so well. But I think the important thing about those things is like none of you gave in. Right. You kept on beating your head against it until it worked. And then it's like, oh, this is what we worked for, which is that's sort of the great stuff of it. But, you mentioned happy accidents. Can you remember anything specific from that film? Or because to me, everything in there is it just seems so specific.
Well, I think we had a really good idea of Matt's like Ben and I. Yeah, I mean, it was easy to be specific when you have three people who are like-minded. It's it's easy to be specific if you have a director who's just very specific. Matt was Matt was specific with his references, and then doing just working his ass off to make this big movie. And it was just as you said, I really had a window into how stressful that could be and how well he handled that. So it's like he trusted Ben and I to sort of bring that aesthetic up. So it was just like, we're always working towards the same thing. And it's, it becomes easy to pivot slightly when you're already starting with, like a B plus by the time the dolly track goes down. Like you're just always trying to make it better. We had a really fantastic dolly grip, Easy, Eric Zucker, in from LA.
Oh, yeah, great.
But also like, Easy, is like one of these guys like does the pickle and the swing on the crane. Like he's just like capable of anything. But like he also was like, the zero tilt stuff was a little new. But he went from, Easy can do anything. But it's also like to see him sort of then buy into the aesthetic as well as we move on and sort of become part of the dramatic timing of everything and his in an aesthetic that wasn't sort of his to begin with. Sorry. So happy accidents. I mean, there's another shot that I'm proud of just because it was one of these things where it's like, it's a shot of when Bill Camp, the commissioner, is arriving. It's like a long lens master. He drives up, he gets up in a car and he gets out of a car and we're dollying across as he's walking towards reporters.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And it was like something where it was like, I remember like by the third take being like, wow, this is really great. Like it made me think of like, he was getting in the car and people were like chasing him. It made me think of like Willie Mays with like little kids running after him. Like it was like this period piece. I don't know. It was very, very like self-congratulatory. But the thing about that shot is like, we were up against it. It was like this super cold day and there's all these police cars. Like don't ever work with period cars. Like things won't start and like we're behind. It's like it's our big crane day and it's like so we got through all the crane stuff in front of the police station and then we had this shot and it was one of these moments as an operator where really knowing both of the director and DP, this wasn't always like this. I mean, these guys are I'm not the person who made this movie, but for this shot it was like it's like Ben wanted to be wide, as DPs like a lot, often, some DPs, it's like he wants to show it, right? Which makes sense. Yeah. And Matt was like kind of pushing to use longer lenses. And it's like, that's the beautiful thing about that format is like, you step back, that's an 85 mil lens, but it's an 85 mil lens on a 65 mil chip.
Wow. On a 65 mil chip. Yeah.
But it's like, but then we this discovery, I was like, guys, long lens master, let's put the camera here. We looked at the viewfinder and everyone was like, yeah. And it just really came together with what Cutchins was doing with the depth of field and the layers and
right.
Matt got really inspired and was really like riding the second seconds about the background. And it's just one of these things where it's like, and it, of course, my just in myself, it's like they could have been, they cut it. They cut it up. It didn't need to be cut up. I mean, they cut to like a reporter saying something or whatever. They barely cut it up. And it was just one of these moments where it was like, because I understood what both of these guys, sort of wanted out of this moment, in a moment where we were really behind and we didn't have time to shoot a wide and coverage. we were able to make something, great.
Yeah.
Because of everyone's contributions, but I was just like, yeah, let's just back up on a longer lens, and everyone's going to get everything.
It totally comes through, and I'll tell you what, I finished watching that movie, and I was like, man, this is like a movie. And I don't even know what that means, but it's like, It felt like it was an old school. They took their time. Everything's by design. It just is a great movie. Everybody should see it.
I was fortunate enough to see it on the big screen, but
yeah. I sadly was not. But what do you think the hardest part of being an A-camera operator is?
I'm not sure what the hardest part is, but for me, I think just, it is a job that my strength of being a camera operator in general was always sort of having a decent eye and caring. And the technical came later, right? So it was like I needed to learn the wheels to not embarrass myself, on a crane. I needed to learn these things. But like I came from, I wanted to be a director like everyone, millions of people will tell you right now. So it's like I came from wanting to be a storyteller. And then since I didn't come up as an assistant, I did assist for a while, but since I didn't come up as an assistant, like I had this great experience, not that there's anything wrong with that, of working on all these documentaries and different stuff and sort of finding interesting frames. So it's like, I had a decent eye and I cared a lot. And it's like, and that was the basis for it. So it's like, that's still kind of what gets me through the day. Everything else I've learned about, and sometimes the hard way about, staying out of political hot water and this, that, and the other thing, I just say it's emotional for me. It's emotionally, it's physically, it's mentally taxing. It's and as one gets older and has families or whatever, or just has like really interesting hobbies, it's like, it's a tough job to do for more than, I don't know how people do it 10, 11 months a year.
I don't think anybody does it 10, 11 months a year anymore. So that's not a problem. You talked about, we mentioned Laura Linney, Jason Bateman, just working with amazing actors. And it's funny, you sort of touched on it, and I've kind of said it before here. What always amazed me was, I don't think I've ever worked with an actor who's as prepared as Laura is. her process was just unbelievable. And then Jason would come in and be like, wait, what scene is this? Did I just get out of prison and I'm here? Okay, great, let's go. And they would both knock it out of the park, but from two different, just amazing. But have you, and you don't have to give any names, have you worked with any actors who were tough to deal with as an A-camera operator? And if so, how do you go about that? Because the two of them were totally approachable and totally, in the process and everything.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been really lucky, and I think the only thing that I've helped that luck is just like in the last few years, as I like project to project. Like if I look back the last 2 years, it's like Michelle Williams, Anne Hathaway, Dakota Johnson, Jude Law. Like it's like it really is. I'm really lucky to work with people at this level. Jamie Foxx, who is a trip and incredibly talented. I think it's just that back to that, like everyone needs something different. You just when you can get, what you need out of someone in terms of hitting a mark, when to not ask. I haven't had anyone, I've been really lucky, But I do think the only thing that's helped my luck, I think I've been really lucky, really. But the only thing that's helped my luck, being on quality projects, but also just knowing you're reading the room and knowing what different people want. Jude was great. Like Jude needs to get there. Like he needs to talk about it. He needs to do his theater thing. He needs forte and then he's like, okay, well, what do you need? It's like, what do you need? Like, Ari, like, how can I make it better? You know what I mean? Like, okay, yeah, this is your mark that we tried to talk about. But it's like, it's just like, and you just know, when, and it's like, but it's like, and people just, it's like, it's good when people see you care too. It's like good when the actors see you care. It's like, you don't have to be loud. You don't have to be, in charge, but there's these moments where like they see you creatively caring, and that really helps.
So you've obviously camera operated quite a bit. You've shot a bunch of things, and you've actually directed a movie. You have a favorite between those as far as what's your favorort position, or does it vary?
No, I think it varies. There's just so much. I think one of the things that I do well is just see the good and bad and everything, maybe. Camera operating is great. You go home afterwards It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, I do a little more. I mean, I try to read the sides the night before, and I try to, I try to get on prep, and I try to, and try to think about the script, but like I don't have to, and I think I have had some DPs, try to support my my moving up, whether it's filling in for an episode. I've actually been hired for a couple episodes on shows that then subsequently got canceled. But the attraction, I think, to that is just prepping. And I've had that experience because, and just the idea of being able to really think it out and not trying to, not being so on the spot thinking of things. And also just being home for dinner. That's a good friend of mine who's a great DP, Brian Burgoyne, who I've worked with for years as well. He's like, yeah, you should do that. Like I filled in for him for a week during COVID and went really well. He's like, and he's like, you already know that you can do this creatively, but you get to be home for dinner, when you prep. And I prep almost as much as I shoot at this time of my career. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, it's interesting. To that attraction. And then, directing, to me, it's like directing is like the most like being a kid. Cause like, I never I just never assumed I could ever be a director. I mean, directing is hard, man. It's like, you have to have answers for everything all the time. It's just like, I see the fatigue on young directors and it's like, it's like, you always have to have an answer for just so many questions all the time. And it's not easy. I co-directed with a lifelong friend, or a few shorts and 1155. And that's a wholly different, it's not even really worth discussing, but an interesting relationship as well.
But that said, because you mentioned it, that movie is, I didn't know what to say earlier. Is it can you see it somewhere?
Yeah, you can. 1155, the movie. I mean, it's on Amazon. It's on some other stuff. I think it's free. I think it's on Prime now. Yeah, it has a very good score on Rotten Tomatoes. My son is not allowed to watch it yet just because of language. So I did look up the Rotten Tomatoes score for me. So shout out Henry.
You got a little street cred there. That's good.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I've been really lucky to do those things.
Ari, this has been fantastic. I mean, I know that you and I actually, I can't wait till the next time I come into New York because we'll go to a coffee shop and sit and talk for another 2 hours, just the two of us, about filmmaking and whatnot. Anybody who's listening, before I ask Ari my final question, go watch the Boston Strangler, or Boston Strangler. There's no "the" in front of it. And actually, there's a new webpage. There's a new page on the website called The Blocking. And I don't even know if you know this, Ari, but that scene that we talked about, which is that slow push into her sitting there, is in there. And also nice. The opening sequence where the first murder takes place, which is just so well laid out. Both of those are in there because I think they're just exceptional examples of blocking and staging.
Nice.
But so thank you. It's been a pleasure. I hope to see you soon. Ben Cutchins, if you're listening to this, my dream is that you get some project and you call Ari on to be the A camera operator and me on to be the B camera operator, and we all go and make great images together. So let's get on that. But I'm going to leave you with the question that I leave everybody with, which is advice for someone getting in the industry today, and or something you've learned along the way that you found to be helpful that you wish you knew earlier on.
Yeah. Thank you, Dave. Thanks for having me. I have actually two pieces of advice, and one is very, I got kind of like a lowbrow, highbrow. The first one, Tony Ponte, who's kind of a legendary New York camera assistant, definitely doesn't no idea who I am. But when I was very young, he was hosting an open house at a rental house, and he was telling a group of us really young assistants were gathered around, and he said, if something goes down on set, he's like, you need to remember who your boss is, who hired you or who's directly above you, and remember how that relationship is going to reflect. And this is something I haven't always listened to, and I wish I had. No, because I think it's listen, I mean, it's like in the moment when you're someone who really cares about something and you see something and you want something to be better and you think this person could be different. It's like all those things can be true, but in terms of longevity in this business, especially in New York City, I think it's a really important before you act based on, it's like, you can interpret this however you want, whether it's like, whether it's like the you see the people that are trying to impress, someone outside of their department for some reason, or just if something goes down and you don't know what to do, it's like, think about, if you're the second AC, think about the first AC. If you're the operator, think about the DP, think about that relationship, because those are relationships, and I've been lucky enough to create, really good creative relationships with above the line folks. But at the same time, I think it's really important to remember, and not just politically, because it's just how it works. Like it's a very top down, like we talked about, the 6-minute increments is the trucks become smaller trucks, which become carts. Like it's an industry. So, and with that, leads me to my second point of advice, which is just a little more heartfelt, if you will, which is it is an industry. And I think a lot of people in the I can only really speak for the camera department, but I think a lot of us get into it, whether it's from film school or it's from PAing or working at a rental house. It's like there's a level of artistry that exists in all, the level of having a heart of an artist that exists in so many of us. And I would just say that in life, this is really just life advice, but I think how it pertains to the film industry is like learn how to nurture that part in you, whether it's making a film with your friends on the side or becoming a really good woodworker or, volunteering, at a charity. It's like whatever feeds your heart, or shooting pictures. It's like we used to take portraits from our friends' basketball teams, like make the kids of the high school basketball team look like they're on the front of a magazine, and whatever kind of nurtures that part of an artist that led you to want to do this with your life. The film industry is not going to nurture that. Like you might travel the world, you're going to make some great friends, you're going to have some great experiences, you're going to work really long hours, but protect your heart to some degree. Is really, I think, something that I've tried to do, but would have, it'd been nice to know also ahead of time. Anyways, thank you, Dave, so much for having this forum for us to kind of all nerd and therapy out about. Take care.
I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. We'll be back soon with another great episode. Don't forget to check us out on theop.io for all sorts of information on operating and storytelling. So thanks for listening and have a great day.